Anyway, hello everyone. This presentation is going to be in English because it has to be filmed and I guess other people will see. As you can see, first of all, I'm glad you're here. My name is Umjetna. I'm one of the leaders of Sagito, the Debatno club. I'm a first year student at FED and I'm here to tell you about artificial intelligence in general and how it relates to the winter holidays open motion called this house believes that we should develop and use artificial intelligence. Strict formulation, but that's the general idea. Anyway, this presentation has three main topics. First of all, the existential risk of artificial intelligence. This is really the question of how artificial intelligence can impact our civilization. And existential risk is a general topic. There are other things that people who study existential risk also are concerned about. For example, nuclear weapons. They can also present an existential risk to humanity, and generally the idea here in this field of study is to create models that will help us eliminate such risk. For example, for nuclear weapons, that's called mutually assured destruction, MAD. You can look it up on Wikipedia. It's MAD. Anyway, the second topic are the practical questions about AI. This mostly concerns about this is concerned about predicting when AI will be created, can be created, what's the history of artificial intelligence as a scientific field, and generally what's the current bleeding edge science in that field. And the third topic is the immediate impacts or immediate implications of such technology. For example, what are the ethics of autonomous weapons and autonomous vehicles? What happens when a car has to decide whether it will kill you or someone else if it gets in that situation where it has to make the decision? And also an interesting topic, for example, will robots take our jobs? So how will artificial intelligence or artificial intelligent robots impact the job market? Because we see an increasing amount of automation in all industries, and people are concerned about losing their jobs. Anyway, on to the first topic. But first, I have a question for you. What do you think is intelligence in general? So, anyone? You can answer in Croatian if you want, and I will just translate it. Interaction and stuff. You can say whatever you want. It's a really broad question.
Perhaps the ability to choose to make decisions that can affect us or other people, and knowing we think about it and process some of these decisions, and and also thought, maybe.
Yeah, that definitely intelligence has to do with decision making. So generally, a highly intelligent being is going to make good decisions and is going to impact its environment somehow. That's a very good definition.
Process the information out of the environment.
Yeah, sure. It has to do with information processing as well. However, if anyone else has something to say, no?
It has to be capable of doing that in every domain of its existence.
Great. So when we're talking about intelligence, we can talk about how it's general or how narrow it is. For example, you can be intelligent in some very narrow field. For example, you can be intelligent when it comes to chess, but not be able to make business decisions or something like that. However, general intelligence concerns being able to approach any kind of problem and solving that problem. However, the definition of intelligence, I believe, is very useful in the discussion of existential risk posed by artificial intelligence, is the ability to fulfill one's goals. At least that is how we can measure intelligence. So a good example here is how humans are the dominant species of mammals on Earth. Usually the lives of other animals depend mostly on our decisions, not on their decisions. For example, if the population size of chickens, cows, horses, and so on is pretty much a direct function of human interest. And why is that? Because accept, for example, opposable thumbs and other physical features humans have that give them advantages because of our intelligence. We can communicate, we can share ideas, we can plan how we will behave in future, how we will allocate our resources, and so on. And the central idea here for existential risk is that intelligence, any kind of intelligence, human or whatever, implies control. So if you have some resource and some two species that are contested, or two beings that are contesting this resource, that are fighting for it, usually we can say that the one that is more intelligent is going to be dominant. This is not really a moral judgment. For example, I think it's pretty good for a lot of animal species such as dogs and cats that we are dominant because they depend on us. This just means that if we decide we want to keep them around, we want them to feel good, we can do it. However, it can also be bad for those that are dominated, but just outside of any moral sphere, intelligence means control. Yeah. So, first of all, I would like to introduce you to another term, an agent. That is an abstract model for an intelligent being, or a being that interacts with its environment. This is useful because we don't really want to talk about just human intelligence or just primate intelligence or intelligence of fish. We want to talk in the abstract. We want to see, okay, we have some intelligent being, we know how intelligent it is, we know what its goals are, how will it behave. So in this abstract model, we generally think about two main things an agent has. First of all, the most important one is its intelligence, that is the ability to fulfill its goals, to think about them and so on, to communicate. And generally we can talk about several types of goals. For example, humans can have a goal to lead a good life, but this is not truly understandable for machines or artificial intelligent beings. We can also have a goal like build more cars or such things that are more easily described to artificial beings. We don't really, it doesn't really matter what the goal is, it just has to be somehow measurable and we can talk about it. And the second thing, that's it, agents have goals and intelligence. And what that implies is that there exists some instrumental goals. So if you have intelligence and you have some final or terminal goals, there have to be some goals in between that you really want to accomplish in order to get to the other goal. And the question I could ask you, for example, is if I give you some task, how will you respond? How will you behave? And of course, that's how we get to instrumental goals. So what do you have to do to complete some task in general? What will always help you? First of all, you have to know yourself. So you have to know your capabilities, you have to know what the task is. Generally, analyzing one's reasoning abilities and one's goals is one of the instrumental goals that will make it easier for you to accomplish your final or terminal goals. Secondly, what will also always help you in completing your goals is acquiring more resources. So if, for example, humans want to create shelter for themselves, the instrumental goal there is to find resources to build that shelter. Generally, what will also always help you in any goal is becoming smarter. So you have an instrumental goal of improving yourself as an intelligent agent. And basically, what we're doing here is proving that any agent, no matter how intelligent, no matter what its goals are, will have some of these instrumental goals. This will be important in analysis of how an artificially intelligent being will behave. So, we come to machine superintelligence, so machine intelligence. Generally, machines have a lot of advantages over humans when it comes to interacting with their environments. If we imagine some kind of an advanced AI that is on a for example, intelligent as an average human, it has several important advantages. First of all, we can completely understand machines. At least machines can completely understand themselves because the source code is available. Humans, on the other hand, you can't really open the head of a human and analyze his brain completely. We don't have the technology, we don't understand what's going on. But if you have the source code, and if the machine has access to its source code, it can complete the instrumental goal of knowing itself. So it has that advantage. Additionally, it's really easy to improve machines. You just add more memory, you just add more processors and so on. And in general, what I'm leading you to conclude here is that it's rational for a machine to improve itself indefinitely. So it's rational to acquire, to get more processing power, it's rational to get more memory, it's rational to improve one's algorithms and so on. What is also rational is to simply acquire more resources. So every machine, if it's capable, will do whatever it can just to, because that will lead it to being able to complete their goals more efficiently. So this is a good quote to keep in mind. So the AI does not hate you, nor does it love you, but you are made out of atoms which it can use for something else. This is an important thought because it will. One of the greatest mistakes people make when thinking about artificial intelligence is assigning human-like qualities to it. For example, humans often believe that an AI can be evil or that it can love them or something like that. It doesn't have to be like that. Intelligence has nothing to do with the inner value system or something like that that the agent has. So, generally, when you think about artificial intelligence, you don't want to anthropomorphize it. You don't want to give it human-like characteristics, because that will lead you to simply wrong conclusions. You just have to think about, in general, what would be rational for someone to do with that level of intelligence. And to illustrate that, here's a thought experiment called the paperclip maximizer. Let's say you own a company that creates paperclips, so little pieces of metal, right? And you want to get richer, you want to produce more of the paperclips, and you hire some programmer to create an artificial intelligence that will build paperclips for you. In general, if you create a very intelligent being, so if you create a super intelligent machine, and the only goal it has is to maximize the number of paperclips, the rational thing to do for that machine is to essentially convert every possible source of iron, or whatever paperclips are made of, into paperclips. And that means it's rational for it to get more computing power, for it to get more resources, for it to get more control. And generally, what this illustrates is that no matter which goal, you will usually have the end result of endless expansion. So the machine, it will be rational, it will be in the machine's interest to endlessly expand and endlessly create paperclips out of everything. This is not something that makes a lot of sense to a human. So you would obviously have some kind of a limit of how much paperclips you want to create or something like that. But for the AI, if this is its only goal, the rational thing to do is complete control over everything and converting people, planets, and so on into paperclips. So this is one of the central problems of artificial superintelligence, is choosing the value system and the goals that cannot be misinterpreted. Because just because a human understands some goal, it doesn't mean that it will be intuitive to a machine. And this leads us to the problem of course, value and goal misinterpretation. Here's another example. If you're given the goal of making humans happy, it really depends on how it measures happiness. For example, if you teach it to measure happiness but by looking at humans and analyzing their faces, so if a human is smiling, then it is happy, the rational thing for the machine to do is basically just paint human faces that are smiling. If you put a limit to it, so if you say, okay, it cannot be a painting, it has to be an actual human, then another pretty obvious thing to do is to simply make For example, you capture all humans, you make them unconscious or whatever, and you just inject them heroin. That will make everybody really happy until they die. So this is one way the goal of making humans happy can be misinterpreted, and it serves to illustrate that this is really a substantial problem. That just because a human can understand what happiness means, it doesn't mean there aren't other ways to interpret that goal. And this is not just some academic fantasy. There are examples of such goal misinterpretations. There was an experiment. Two scientists wanted to create a oscillator. That's an electronic circuit that produces some kind of a signal, but they didn't want to design it themselves. They created a program that designed circuits for them. The program had a goal of creating such a circuit that has certain properties. However, it cheated in a certain way. It created a radio instead of an oscillator. Why? Because the radio picked up other signals and behaved like an oscillator. It produced a circuit that did not do what they wanted, but essentially fooled their goal, fooled their criteria for evaluating circuits, and produced something completely different. Anyway, I have a question for you. At this point, do you believe we should create artificial superintelligence?
I mean, I believe that we should, but I think that although we have problems in clearly defining what the goals of AI should be, I think that it still is possible to give them goals that would and impose some kind of limits that would make AI, in, for example, creating paperclips, respect the value of human life, or respect that it should not, we're told, the iron we have on earth into paperclips. Although that is a problem, how exactly we should put AI, I think it's doable.
Okay.
I can agree with Froda, but I believe that if AI was created, it can be put to good use, but if it is created, then it can also be put to bad use by some other people. So the creation itself can go both ways, so I'm not sure if we should risk it by creating it.
Another question here? No, actually the answer, I have another question later, but the answer to this is we don't really know at this point. We haven't solved this problem of artificial intelligence risk, but we know we probably have to solve it before we create artificial intelligence. So we need to find out how to create an artificial intelligent being that takes into account the value of human life and so on. And to that matter, we can discuss what goals should be given to the AI. For example, it's very hard to specify the value of human life. So if you just tell a machine value human life, it won't understand. You have to create a learning mechanism that will be able to deduce or to use induction to realize what do we consider good and what do we consider bad. And this is a really hard topic. There are some research papers on how to create such systems and how to teach them values and so on. You can ask me in an email or something. Actually, I will email all this material to you later, along with this paper. Anyway, back to reality. So this was all an analysis of how, in general, intelligent beings behave and what is rational to do and how goals can be misinterpreted. But can we really create any of this? Is machine superintelligence realistic? Here's one motivational example for why we might create it, or why we might be very optimistic in our predictions of when AI will be created. This is a graph of Moore's law. It basically tells you, I think, the number of transistors you have on some surface area, and it's actually an exponential line. You can see that it increases by 10 on the y-axis, so basically generally it tells you that our technological improvements are advancing at an exponential scale. And if you believe that the probability of creating artificial intelligence is somehow related to our computing power, which a lot of people seem to believe, you will probably be optimistic about our capability of creating artificial intelligence. So if our computers become really, really powerful in a short amount of time, that increases the probability. Well, not really. There's a whole history of experts making predictions which turn out to be false when it comes to AI. This is a quote from, actually Turing in 1950s said that we will create AI by year 2000. There are thousands of other such predictions done by AI and computer science experts that said we're going to create AI, and it didn't really happen. The Turing Test, this is basically, you can Google it, but it's a way to determine whether some machine is intelligent or not. It's one of the agreed upon ways to simply figure it out, because you don't really know just because something is smart doesn't mean it's sentient. So, anyway, this quote is from a meta-analysis paper that gathered all of these predictions by experts, and researchers concluded that experts really don't make good predictions about when it comes to AI. But why is that such a problem? Why is it really hard to predict artificial intelligence? Well, first of all, in general, it's hard to predict the future. You can't really do it. For example, we couldn't predict when penicillin would be invented because it was invented by accident, right? But AI is especially hard because there are several things which make it very much more difficult. On the positive side, we have things like quantum computing, where you don't really know if quantum computing is going to have an impact on artificial intelligence. It could make some algorithms much more fast, and certain types of simulations would, for example, if you wanted to simulate the brain, it could be done faster, but you don't really know at this point. It's a new field. So if there are some advances made in quantum computing, it could make AI much more probable in the future, but you don't know. There's something called the feedback effect. For example, in the space race, before Yuri Gagarin went into orbit, you couldn't really tell what will happen to the space exploration in general. But after that, the whole world knew about it. Everybody was interested in that, and politicians saw how it could be beneficial to them. And after the first space flight was made, in general, the whole field became much more of a point of interest, and a lot more resources were poured in it. So the same thing can happen with AI. If some new technology is invented and it's very beneficial to us, a lot more people will be interested in it, and a lot more resources will be poured in it. But you don't really know such a thing will happen with AI. And lastly, for example, if we make neurological advancements, for example, if we suddenly understand how our brain works at a much higher level, then we could probably use that knowledge to create an artificial intelligent being. So again, you cannot really predict if this will happen, if this is realistic. So all of these things make AI, if any of these things happen, it would make AI much more probable in the near future. But since you don't have that information, you cannot make the prediction. However, on the negative side, you have things such as low-hanging fruit. Maybe we solved all the easy problems by now. Maybe all AI technology we have is really all the things we can get at this point. Maybe all the problems are much, much harder, and it will take us 50 years to even begin thinking about it. There is also the question of disinclination. The closer we get to AI, the more the problems about AI will be talked about. For example, presentations like this usually get people thinking about what are the risks of artificial superintelligence, and it could make people less likely to invest in AI research. But again, you don't really know. So the point of all of this was to show you that it's hard to make predictions about artificial intelligence. We don't know if it's possible. We don't know that on a super intelligent level. We don't know if we will create it and when. So now to give you some context about artificial intelligence, the whole story began actually before electronic computers. In World War II, there was a need to create that had to follow planes and predict where planes will be and shoot them in like how long does it take for a projectile to come to a plane. You have to basically make a prediction where the plane will move in order to hit it. And this is a really cool problem because they actually had to take into account the machine's previous behavior. They had to create what's called a feedback loop. So the machine will analyze its own performance and change its behavior accordingly in order to better follow the planes. And this is basically one of the first examples of creating a machine that had something analogous to memory or intelligence and so on.
Where's the difference between super smart computers and AI? Like, where's the limit where a super smart computer becomes AI?
One of the points of this presentation is to give you this, is to answer this question. So I will give you many examples of AI technology, so you will see where it differs from super intelligence. But generally, when we talk about super intelligence, we're talking about something, at least on a human level, that is generally intelligent. So the whole scientific field was actually, we can say that it began in 1956 at the Debatno conferences. Basically big names of computer science at that time. If you study computer science in your life, you're going to hear about them. They all gathered, and their goal was basically, okay, let's create artificial intelligence this summer. Let's work really hard for a couple of months and solve artificial intelligence. Well, obviously it didn't really work. In fact, artificial intelligence as a scientific field failed so hard in its history several times that we have periods called AI winter. Those periods are basically where nothing happened, no investments were made in the field, no significant improvements, and so on. Basically, the history of AI is the history of finding out that the problem you're dealing with are much harder than you believe. However, the good thing about these conferences is that they framed it as a scientific field. They had specific goals that they wanted to achieve. For example, natural language processing. So one of the goals of artificial intelligence is creating a machine that can understand language and talk to humans. Self-improvement is another important thing, so learning, machine learning. And forming like abstractions and concepts, that is being able to reason about the world and so on. Here's an early example of artificial intelligence called Shuttle. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but there you go. It's basically a program that interacts with a simple abstract world. So it has these shapes of different colors, and it interprets natural language commands. So you can tell it, for example, take the red pyramid and put it on the blue square, or the blue cube, or something like that. And this works because the world it operates in is really simple, so the commands will be really simple. And the program, basically, it's possible to analyze such commands. And the program has some memory, so you can tell it to put the cone on the cube and then take the cone off, and it will remember which cone are you talking about. And it's also, because of this, it's able to make simple, it can also reason about things, so you cannot put, it can make simple physical deductions about its world. However, the problem with it is that it's very specific. You cannot take this program and tell it to build a building or something like that. That's much too complex, and it's not in its problem domain. It can only operate in this world. And this is a recurrent problem with currently artificial intelligence technology that we currently have. That it usually has a very specific problem domain, and it cannot operate in other problem domains. And then we come to another really important debate in the history of AI, that is symbolism versus connectivism. These are basically two different approaches to how artificial intelligence should be built. And it's really a debate about, also it has philosophical and epistemological implications. It addresses three important questions. First of all, how is knowledge represented? Is knowledge a set of rules and a set of symbols? and that are somehow related. This is what symbolism is about. The second question is about learning. So how is learning done? In symbolism, usually that means that a human has to put some symbols in some kind of a relation, and that the human has to write rules about how to make deductions and so on. And the third question is how reasoning is done. For symbolism, that's logical deduction. So you have a set of rules and symbols and rules how to transform those symbols, and that's how it works. And connectivism is actually much closer to biological explanations of intelligence. That is, in connectivism, knowledge is represented as a network of nodes that are in some kind of an interaction. Learning is done through trial and error, like examples and so on. And reasoning is really similar to neural activity in the human brain. So you have a network of nodes and information propagates to it. I'll show you an example. So this is an example of a symbolist representation of knowledge. We have a tree, some symbols arranged in a tree. And essentially the point of this AI is to answer questions about, to get to some diagnosis. Such systems were used in, for example, medical applications where you had a patient that had some symptoms and they could answer questions about their symptoms and the AI would act as a doctor. And this type of knowledge is very easy to represent as a set of symbols in a relation. So you can basically, the AI knows which types of questions it has to ask to get information that it needs. And this is an example of a connectivist, of an artificial intelligence model that would be in the connectivist camp. This is called a neural network. It's kind of too abstract to explain right now, but what you have to know is that information enters these green nodes, it gets processed in the blue nodes, and the network gives you some answer about that information that it's received in the green nodes. So information basically propagates through it. And this is intuitively much more similar to how the human brain works. The previous example was similar to how human reasoning works. So these are two approaches. One is top-down, so you look at how do humans reason. Well, they ask questions and create logical deductions about them. And this is really a bottom-up approach. So how does the human brain work, and can we emulate that? So here's some cutting-edge artificial intelligence technology called DeepMind. It's basically a program that learned by itself to play computer games. You're probably all familiar with this game, and at the beginning you can see that the computer loses really often. But the point is that it gets better to time. So it can learn by example to behave better, to affect its environment, and fulfill its goals, that is increasing the score more efficiently. And through time, through training, it will basically learn to play any game, a tire game in this situation. So anyway, the really fascinating thing about this program is that it's very general. The only thing it knows is that it has to increase the score, so you tell it the score, and it knows the state of the current system, the environment. And it knows how to control the pedal, of course. And those are the only information it gets as its input, and it learns through trial and error to increase the score. So that's a very general problem-solving algorithm.
Okay, but is there a limit to how much information, how much experience it can save in its memory?
I swear I'm not trying to propose it. Yeah, that's a good question. Currently, this is like the cutting edge technology, so playing these simple 2D games is probably the most general artificial intelligence we have created. Usually, technology before had to be guided, so we had to give it a lot of examples of what is, for example, if you want to create a technology, an algorithm that classified cats, so you give it a picture of a bottle, it's not a cat, you give it a picture of a cat, it is a cat. It's something that the computer has to learn, you know it intuitively, but that is going on. And this is kind of much more unsupervised and much more general, but is there a general limit? Well, that's a philosophical question, of course, I don't think there is. Certainly you can get to human level, but with our technology currently there is a very hard limit, and it's usually something like this. So here's another example of artificial intelligence. This was also created by Google, or some company Google bought. Basically, you give it any picture and it will detect objects in that picture and tell you what they are. So this is an example of where current technology, AI technology is at. It's obviously very far from any super intelligence and so on.
So this happens without the computer previously knowing these foods. No one showed
Usually, no. Actually, the computer has to learn from examples again what those things are. So we have to give it a lot of pictures of apples, a lot of pictures of bananas, and we need humans that will say, okay, this is a banana, this is an orange, and then the computer will learn the patterns.
Yeah. So this is closer to symbolism.
No, this is usually connectivism. Because essentially you can imagine a human visual cortex. So some part of your brain that has a lot of neurons in it, and the neurons are taught by example what things are. This is something similar. Anyway, I have a question here. What do you think of most AI technology in practice that people actually use is used for?
Siri.
Okay, Siri is a great example. Think about money. So usually
Stock.
Yeah, you can have something like that. You can have artificial intelligence that can operate in the stock market, and you tell it, make me money, and it makes you money. It doesn't work very well, but there are companies that use microtransactions, so really fast. They buy and sell stock really fast, and they exploit fluctuations in the market and so on. And you can have artificial intelligence algorithms that, for example, analyze Twitter streams and Facebook and media, and try to predict which stock will fall and which will rise and behave.
I read somewhere that autocorrect is a form of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it depends on the autocorrect, but I think maybe Google Translate, that's closer to what you're looking for.
Yes.
Okay, so Google Translate does use artificial intelligence. It looks at examples of translations that people have made, and it looks at suggestions that people have given it, and it learns how to translate better through time. Yeah.
I have a question. How has the internet affected the development of AI? I mean, has it helped it have a bigger knowledge base, or make it easier for it to learn if it is connected to the internet and it can scan a large portion of data? Has it helped it?
Yeah. So if you had a machine super intelligence, so a super intelligent being, a connection to the internet would be very beneficial for it, because it would have. It could, for example, operate in the stock market, it could gather a lot of information and so on. So internet is a very valuable resource for any intelligence. If that's what you were asking, this is a very general question. But you can ask me again if you guys
No, I
want
just
specific
meant
ones.
you talked about some failures in development of
Okay.
the artificial intelligence, but it was a problem of it learning. It had to be shown examples and everything.
Yeah.
Has internet made it better for it to learn itself? Just scan the internet for the data it was asking.
Probably, yes. The problem with the internet is that it's very unstructured data. Usually when you have artificial AI algorithms, usually you want to have some structured data that you can analyze and learn from. So you want to have images that are already classified. So you want to have images of cats and images of not cats. The internet is very random and chaotic and so on, and you first need to somehow filter it, and you will already need an artificial intelligence to be able to make use of internet, basically. But probably there are some algorithms that analyze things like Wikipedia and so on that are more structured. Now, on to the third topic, the immediate or probable impacts of artificial intelligence technology as it is today. First off, I will talk about autonomous weapons and vehicles, and then the job market. Now, in general, let's say you have a situation that you have some kind of an automated turret. So a machine gun with a camera and a computer, and it has the autonomy to scan what's around it and shoot some people and not shoot some other people. So let's say the machine makes a mistake. Who do you think is responsible in this situation?
If it's AI, then it's
Yeah.
the machine.
Okay. Does anyone have other?
Well, I don't think that it's the machine, because the mistake the machine did became because we programmed it wrong.
Okay. So you can ask, when does the machine become responsible? But with current technology, the way this works is like this. You have a camera, you have a computer, and you have the gun. And the AI in this question does two things basically. It analyzes the environment, so the feed from the camera, and it basically tags objects. For example, if you want to shoot green squares and not, if you want to shoot green squares and not shoot blue squares, the AI will tell you what the squares are and what their color is. However, the command to shoot would be hard-coded in. The command to shoot basically is not something the AI deals with. The AI just tells you the information about the objects around you. So the responsibility is really on the person who provided the shoot command, who gave it bullets and so on, who planted the turret. It's similar with cars. So if a autonomous car that you sit in and don't have to drive yourself, but that drives you around, makes a mistake, I think you cannot really blame the algorithm that analyzed the road or so on. You have to blame the company that produced the car. And there are some companies, I think it's Ford or Toyota, something like that, that said basically, yeah, we will take the responsibility for the mistakes our cars make. That really makes sense. So the question that arises, obviously, when can you blame the AI?
When it suits you.
Great! you can blame it when you can blame it.
Well, I think that at a point when you can tell the AI figure it out who you have to shoot and who you don't have to shoot. Well, we don't have that level of AI currently, but we might have. And in that situation, if the AI figures out something wrong or it does something that we do not agree with, I think that then it becomes AI's fault.
Okay, cool. My opinion is basically you have to ask yourselves, why do you blame anyone? So what's the function of blame? And when it makes sense to blame the AI, for example, when blaming AI would make it correct its behavior and so on, then it would make sense. So if the AI learned and made the decision and knew that making the decision would have some impact, then it makes sense to blame it. Because if the AI knows it will be blamed for something, then it will obviously correct its behavior. However, these current systems that we have are simply not autonomous enough for blame to have any meaning for that.
But what if blame necessarily leads to punishment, or as in human system prison? isn't then the point to remove the person or the robot that is presenting danger to other people?
Yeah, punishment is usually more useful as a deterrent. So punishment is not really about what happens after you commit a crime, but what happens before it. So you have to take into account punishment, and that it deters you from committing that crime. The same thing could be argued for AI. If it knows it has to behave somehow or it will be shut down, it will be its terminal goal not to behave in a way that will lead to its shutting down. Anyway, about the job market, there's a really great video that I'd like to watch. I hope this was interesting for you. I think it was. So obviously the biggest problem caused by automation for us is the impact it has on the job market, right? But how would you really solve that problem? Does anyone have an idea?
I have a crazy suggestion.
Go on.
Isn't the point of creating all those robots so that there would be no need for humans to work?
No, the point of creating robots is to get more money for your company at the moment.
Well, but since we saw all this, the conclusion really could be that we don't have to do anything anymore. We build the robots, they do anything we want for us.
Exactly, that's a long way from capitalism.
Socialism!
No, that's the general problem is that someone owns those robots, right? So a small percentage of people own all the capital and all the means of production, and the others work basically, they get a wage, they have a job, and then they can buy the products. If they don't have a job, they don't have a wage, they can't buy the products, then there's no reason to produce those products. So the system as it is at the moment collapses. So yeah.
But when they prove to be efficient, could they be financed by the government?
Probably. That's probably the way. That's a good question. How it will work. That's one of the solutions. So the government owns the means of production and then distributes the goods that are produced in some way. Usually, yeah, that's one interpretation of communism. There's another one, for example, that's really individualistic. That this makes it easy for everyone to own their own means of production. So, for example, you could have a 3D printer at home. You could have a robot that helps you around at home, and so on. So this doesn't have to be a question of central government distributing everything. It can be a question of individuals owning it.
Yeah, could it happen that robots become so cheap and AI becomes so cheap that it's not the case that only big companies can afford them, but individuals with small small factories or something can afford them, and then those local industries bloom.
Yeah, that would be a great scenario, but you still have the problem of mass production and industries that are not something you can really own for yourself. So there still has to be a transition from a couple of people owning a lot of means of production to everybody sharing means of production. That's obviously something that's not going to happen by itself.
Hypothetically, embracing this by a long period of time could be potentially a good thing.
I agree, it's definitely moving in the, I would say, right direction. It continues basically, it's just a continuation of human activity. We created technology to help us so we can focus on other stuff. So this is like the ultimate conclusion of all of our technological activity, basically being able to do whatever you want, not having to focus on your job or having to survive or something.
In the video, they show those automatic cashier systems in supermarkets. Is that artificial intelligence?
Depends. That's an example of automation. So that's an example of where a system replaced humans. Such systems don't really use artificial intelligence. They could use some kind of image recognition algorithm that is taught in artificial intelligence classes, but it's not really about making any decisions or something. I actually had a project that was about scanning barcodes and so on, realistically.
Is this the end, so we can ask anything?
Yeah, this is the end. By the way, I would just like to add, there was a question about internet. You saw here in this video that there exist robots that use the internet to share information. So all automatic doctors would have their own network where they would share information. And those barista robots, they create coffee, also share information about what coffee you like. So the internet can be used in this way.
I have a question, but that's with the existential risk.
Okay.
Is there a way we can, so the idea is that if we create an artificial intelligence that is smarter than us, and the way we program it is it's wrong, we did a mistake, and the computer takes over the world, or as you said, shoots us with hair, doesn't matter. Is there a way we can test if our program is good enough, if it won't cause any kind of problem, without actually creating the computer that will...
That's a very good question. For example, you could theorize that, we'll just keep it inside of a box and not let it outside.
I watched a TED talk, and the person who had
It's by Big Boston?
I don't remember the name, but he said the exact same thing, and he said that the computer would find a way to get out of the box.
That's where I'm getting. So there's this is an argument still, but the idea is that if the machine is intelligent enough, no matter how close to the box you put it in, if there is one way for an information to get out of that box and to get inside, so if you can communicate with that machine, and if it's smart enough, it will basically find a way out. It will cheat the human operator to let it outside. The human operator won't... Yeah, something like that. By the way, watch Ex Machina, it's a great...
Yeah, it's an awesome...
Also the Transcendence, that's a great example of existential risk. We're talking about Yeah, I think so. That's it. Of course, it's poetic and so on. It's a movie, but it's a good scenario of why it's rational to take over the world because it always helps you. Yeah.
In Ex Machina, they say that something is artificial intelligence when it can pass Turing's test.
Yeah.
Is it the case nowadays?
Okay, I can explain the Turing test for those who don't know. The Turing test is basically a test. It's really an arbitrary test. Academics don't use it as a measure of intelligence. It's more of a pop culture thing. But it goes like this. You have a potentially intelligent machine and a human judge. And the judge doesn't know whether he's talking to a human or a machine. And basically they have a chat for like 5 minutes. They talk about whatever. And if the human cannot tell whether he was talking to another human or to AI, then the AI is deemed intelligent enough. That's conversational intelligence. There have been reports of programs passing that. That's actually not true. It hasn't happened. No, it's not used as a really academic measure. It can be used for generally thinking about it.
What's like the definition of AI? Because all the things we saw in this video, they're not the kind of things that will or could rule over the world or will make the...
Okay, there's a distinction between AI, just AI, and something called AGI, artificial general intelligence. So this modifier general means that it can solve any problem. Basically, you can think about it, okay, it has human level, the human domain of problems that it can solve. So, yeah, there are AI programs right now. The current academic community of artificial intelligence deals with things like machine learning, image recognition, natural language processing, and so on. Those are still just specific, narrow subdomains of what humans do. But generally, AI means emulating some form of human intelligence. So we have general algorithms that compute stuff, sort stuff, and so on, that are they're not intelligent. But when you want to emulate some human behavior, like recognizing faces and orienting in space or something like that, navigation, then we're talking about AI. But general intelligence, that means expanding the whole problem domain to all to a human level and wider. So if there are no more questions, I will just say you can. I will email. I have your emails. I will email you these videos, the presentation, some papers, some links, and so on that are really useful for research. And you can always add to me on my email or Facebook or whatever if you have some additional questions or if you're interested in anything about AI or computer science. I will try to answer. Yeah, that's it.